Hey y'all, it's Danielle Bill with Melanin Mental Health and Ministry. And so today I was in my car and I was listening to I Belong to You by William McDowell. And so this is one of my favorite gospel songs. It hits the same every time I hear it. It really sends me into worship. And so the lyrics, I've abandoned everything I've ever known. I surrender. My life is not my own. And so as I was driving and the lyrics, the hook, it kept playing and it said, I surrender. And then I began to think about how this year, my word for this year has been surrender, because I struggle with relinquishing control. Then I heard the part of the lyric that says, I belong to you. My life is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself to you. So to surrender is to give yourself. It is not forced. It's because of a decision that you make. You intentionally choose to give yourself to God. And so the lyrics sent me straight into tears, worship, and of course it's messy outside, so I'm crying and wiping my eyes while trying to see at the same time. And I just kept thinking about obedience, obedience, obedience. Um, and what really spoke to me, I've abandoned everything I've ever known, because obedience isn't easy. Obedience requires intentionality, and it requires giving up some of the things that you enjoy, some of the things that you thought, some of your plans. Obedience is hard. So are you willing to put down the projects, the plans, the things that you had in your mind, to be obedient and follow God's plans for your life? Are you willing to stop forcing things, trying to manipulate situations to work in your favor, and simply relinquish yourself to God? It's not easy. Again, it's not easy. And so I think about how we often hear that giving up is a bad thing. It has a negative connotation. But what if quitting or giving up is how you exercise your power to become free? What if you quit smoking, something that's causing some damage to your health? What if you quit the self-sabotaging behaviors? What if you quit the self-negating thoughts? What if you quit the unhealthy patterns that you wrestle with? What would that look like? How would that improve? What if you quit trying to do it on your own and submit and surrender to God? What would that look like for you? So quitting isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's based on the context, because there are some things in our lives that we need to quit, that we need to put an end to. There are some necessary endings that must take place before we go into the next dimension or next season in our lives. And so those lyrics just kept speaking to me. Obedience. Obedience. Are you willing? And so when I became a licensed minister and preacher, it was not my plan for myself. Although I wrote my first sermon at 8 years old, I didn't connect the dots in adulthood that this would be how my call would look. I would be walking this thing out as a preacher, as a young black woman in ministry, not a plan that I had for myself by any means. My desire has always been to become a clinical psychologist. And so the amazing thing about God is that God doesn't require you to forfeit your dreams completely. Sometimes God may. But God has taken my mental health advocacy and my education of mental health and connecting it to ministry and to the church, and just showing me how they intersect. And so I love that God is able to take the things that we desire when they align with what God desires and put them together, and they create such an amazing impact. And so are you willing to say, you know what, I know this isn't God's will for my life. I know that I'm walking out of alignment with God. I know I'm trying to do this on my own. I know I'm trying to do my own thing. But I surrender. I surrender this relationship to you, God. I surrender myself to you, God. I surrender this business to you. Are you willing to stop working on whatever it is that may not be God ordained, although you want to see it through, to follow God's plans for your life? When I think about Jesus, when he cried out to God, He said, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, but not your will, but not my will, but your will be done. And so that's not verbatim in the scriptures and the synoptic gospels. And so again, it's not verbatim. But he said, God, if you are willing, can you remove this cup of suffering? But not my will, but your will be done. And so willing, something about willing is just, are you willing? Are you willing to endure so that God's will can be done in your life? And so something else that I thought about that I want to share is that God is enough. I wrote by the old ministry that I belonged to, my home church that I grew up in. And so I thought that my purpose began and also ended in that place once I made the decision to leave. But when I rode by, so many memories, and I'm so grateful for this place, so foundational. It helped me to become, it helped me to discover, it helped me to just see myself in a totally different light. I had no idea I had these amazing abilities. I tapped into some people who really believed in me, who really encouraged me. And so, and me speaking to the aspect of me thinking that my purpose ended there, because I wonder, God, if I leave, then what? Because at times we can put people on pedestals and we can think that people are responsible for the blessings in our lives or the doors that open, and it's God. So God is enough. I want to encourage you that God is enough. None of your endorsements matter. It doesn't matter what people can write on a letter of recommendation. If God is not backing you, then it will not come to pass. It may appear to work temporarily, but it won't last. And so it doesn't matter what is before or after your name. If God is not backing you, it does not matter. So none of your endorsements compare to the backing of God. None of your endorsements compare. God is enough. And so if God desires something for your life, it will come to pass. So that is why people are able to start businesses and flourish even without the money, because God will send the provision. God will send the support. God will send the help when you are in God's will and operating in God's will for your life. God will send what you need along the way. And I don't say that to negate credentials, because I have them myself. But I realize that none of that stuff matters if I'm not in alignment with God's will. And so I just want to encourage you to align yourself with God's plans for your life. It is not easy. And also that to understand that even doing God's work and operating in God's will is not easy. Again, Jesus is the perfect example of having to lay down his life. It's not easy at all. But there is a great reward. I believe it's internally. You just feel it when you are in alignment with God. You know that you can endure. You know that it won't last always. You know that on the other side, you'll come out and better. And so again, I just want to encourage you to be obedient, submit to God's will for your life. We're in this season where so many people are grinding and working and trying to create. And so many things, people are pressured from others on social media. And I just want you, if God is telling you to be still in this season, be still. If God is telling you to create in this season, create. But be in tune with the Spirit of God for your life. Don't worry about other people. Don't compare yourself to other people. Stay in your lane, in the lane that God has you in. So be obedient to the Spirit of God. God is enough. None of your endorsements matter. It doesn't matter if you have the support of people. It doesn't matter the network of people that you may have supporting you. None of that matters if God is not in the midst. So again, surrender and submit your plan to God.
I've been captured by a love I can't explain. And now you have me, and I'm forever changed. I've abandoned everything I've ever known. Now I surrender.